Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. Just a quick update to this adapter here for the Famicom. You know, it converts 72-pin NES carts to Famicom, so you can play them in your Famicom. In the previous video there, you'll see that I added a cap onto the M2 line, you know, between the M2 line and ground, and I can't remember, I think it was going with the 22 picofarad or something at the time. Now, after doing a lot more testing that weekend, I noticed that games like Super Mario Bros. 2 had significant problems with the display there, because in that particular game it's heavily utilising the IRQ in order to display things at the relevant time on the screen and stuff, and it wasn't displaying half the display there. The game was working, you could see it sounded okay, it was functional, but it wasn't, there was loads of the play area was missing. So I then revisited this and thought about this, and obviously there's going to be a direct consequence of sticking a cap on the M2 line there. If you're delaying the trailing edge of that clock, that's what that cap's going to be doing. It's not just acting as a filter, depending on the size of it. Well, not depending on the size of it, but the size can dictate how long a delay you add onto the the trailing edge there, as the curve, as it comes down, as it discharges between each clock change from a high to a low, etc. So I think that cap was adding too much of a delay on there, which was not knocking out the IRQ timing, but sort of still, because that gave me some compatibility with Bubble Bobble and various other things that would previously just, wouldn't run for more than a few minutes. I started looking more at, other ways of trying to deal with that and understand what's going on and understand what might remedy the problem. So I tried to pull down and various other things, and I did some measurements and things on there with my scope and stuff. I couldn't really see very much. It's quite difficult. You really need something where you can capture, like I said this before, you need it like a digital scope where you can capture for a period of time and then look back, scroll back through the capture you've done to see exactly what you've got. So yeah, pretty tricky for me to work out myself, to be honest, with the kit I've got. So what I ended up doing then was I did some research, obviously, and one of the things that I found is it was talking about, some of the guys out there talk about you can get ringing, what's called ringing, where it's the length of the traces again, and the way that the shape of the traces, whether it's, these are all angled, you shouldn't have like 90-degree turns and things, but vias can introduce that ringing as well, as far as I can understand, and it's all about traces running nearby and next to each other and the lengths of them and all the rest of it. So one of the things that suggested there was to put 100 ohm resistor in series with the traces that are, you're getting ringing on, and that can help solve the problem. So I added a 100 ohm resistor in series with the M2 line, but at the same time you'll notice I've got a wire coming off here. It's going straight to the M2 pin that comes in here, which is lifted off the board. I just heated it and then just used a small metal tool and just lifted the pin up. So it comes, the M2 line comes in on the 72 pin connector straight from that wire straight to the pin, and then I forget where it is now, I think it's here, the via that was here I've actually split, I've cut it there, so it's no longer connected to the point here as normal, and then because it's no longer connected here either, I think I separated it somewhere else, I can't quite remember now, but the bottom line is I've separated it at both ends, so that in parallel to this wire here you've not got the original trace, because it's that trace that's the problem. And now that made a huge difference. And I no longer needed to worry about the cap. This cap here is different. This is just across the supply. It's going from +5 to ground. That's just a 22 picofarad cap, so that's where I ended up sticking a cap. I don't think it needs that, but I thought, well, let's just add a bit more bypassing on here anyway, at the point where the supply is coming into this adapter, or going into the Everdrive actually, in effect, your cart that's going in here. But I don't think it really needs it, but it's there anyway. So that's what I've ended up with. Like I say, this 100 ohm resistor going, feeding the M2 straight from the 72 pin side straight to the 60 pin side, with nothing in between. And then finally, and this has solved it completely for me. I've tested everything I can think of. There's probably 140 games or something I've tested. I've been playing this for over a week and a half now in this state. And it's solid, absolutely solid. I can't get a single glitch out of it, and this was required. This is what's done the job, and this is me just tinkering and a bit of guesswork again, really, because having noted there the difference that it made putting a 100 ohm resistor in series with the M2 line here, that kind of was some more evidence supporting the fact that it's all about the traces, the way the traces are routed on here, the lengths of the traces. Now, typically, and I posted this in the last video actually as one of the comments, I wouldn't expect the lengths of the traces on a board like this to cause so much of a problem, because it's all about, with that type of problem really, it's generally where you get higher clock speeds. Now, having said that, I can't quite remember, I think the M2 clock's pretty fast actually, so maybe it is, well, there obviously is a bearing there in terms of, let's say, this ringing effect and parasitic capacitance and stuff. But following on from that, I start to think, what else can I do about this? Now, I've read many articles that suggest using, it's about ground planes. If you've got good ground planes, that can help resolve this problem. So I started to think, well, what would happen if I created my own artificial ground plane over the top of all of these traces on the back here, and potentially on the front as well. But just after doing the back here, I used some of this copper. Can you see this is that tape you can use for protecting from slugs and things? It's like copper. It's just copper tape. It's like got a sticky back, and it's it's just pure copper. If you put your multimeter on one side and the other, it's dead short. Absolutely, it's like superconductive. So I've cut this to shape here, and originally it was slightly wider, so you'll notice it's not cut perfectly along the top edge there, it's a bit wavy, and it's the same on the bottom because it was slightly thicker to the point where it almost touched the wires on the bottom side there and on the top. I think when I did it originally, I measured my meter before I tested it, and I had a short between one of the wires. So the second attempt, I just cut it down a little bit, so that when it's sat there now, as you can see, it's in between the wires. It's not touching the wires up here, and it's not touching the wires down there. Now, bear in mind you've got wires underneath it, but it's got this, like I say, it's got a sticky backing on it that's an insulator, if you like. It's very, very thin. It's clear. It looks like it's just glue, but it's not. I've tested it quite thoroughly, so it's safe to do that. After sticking it on there, I've tested continuity between all of the pins and the wires and things underneath, and there's nothing shorted anywhere. And as I say, I've been using this for a week and a half now anyway, and it's been absolutely solid. And obviously, just here, you can see where I've joined it up. There's the ground connection just where my finger is, just there, and I just scratched a tiny bit of the solder mask off the trace there, and then just soldered it on. So that whole shield there is, well, shielded. That whole piece of copper is shielded. It's got straight to ground. And after doing that, it's 100%. But the difference is like night and day, because there was, I think it was Super Mario Brothers 2. I was having an issue before I put this piece of shielding on here. Super Mario Brothers 2, it was pretty consistent, especially when the system was cold, which is bizarre. I don't understand that, but I came across similar anomalies like that when I was looking at the MVS sound fix. If you look back at some of the old video there about the, I think it was like the 138 in 1, the 161 in 1, and 120 in 1, when I worked out that needed a cap on one of the lines there. It was a similar thing with that. One thing I noticed through testing over the year or so that I tested is in advance of that fix. Is that temperature was a factor. So if you get a really hot day, it would glitch quicker than on a really cool day on the MVS. And it's a similar thing with this. It's like, say, you could start this up cold, and that Super Mario Bros. 2, you could get it to glitch every single time. And after maybe 20 minutes of it crashing, resetting, crashing, locking up, freezing, etc., suddenly it would start to gradually be okay, and then after a minute or two, everything would be fine, and you'd be able to play it for an hour and not have a single issue. Maybe just the odd glitch or the odd lockup. So temperature was a factor. Now, you could then start to think, well, is it the system? It's not the system. It definitely wasn't the system. I did everything. This, as you've seen in the previous video, it's had a new power socket, it's had a full complete cap kit. I've cleaned this connector here. It's a really good snug fit. I've had the scope onto it. I've checked everything. There's nothing wrong with the system at all. But temperature is a factor, and I'm not sure why. It must be an impedance thing. Maybe something in the Famicom is warming up, and as it warms up, let's say something is changing there. So in terms of when you've got this issue on here with a ringing, it's more susceptible to it when the Famicom is cold. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's like, I can't quantify it, but it's there. It's immeasurable. You can see it. I can see it myself. Like I say, just from the tests that I've done. But with this on now, let's say this is solid. It doesn't matter whether it's warm, whether it's cold, it just works, and everything works. I haven't had a single issue, which I couldn't say about the cap. Let's say in the previous video where I had the cap on the M2 line, yeah, the tests I'd done, everything was okay, but it was only when I started to test more games that I had the problems with the IRQ. And then as soon as I undid the work there to fix the issue with the IRQ, it was stable for many games but not for all. So like I say, that was why I then went on to look at this idea here. So yeah, totally unorthodox, but that works, well, for me. So my final thoughts here: do I need a second one of these on this side here? Well, I mean, at the moment I would say no, because I haven't been able to get induce a single issue with this at all, and I've tested as many games as I can think of. I've tried loads of games I've never played before, started playing them, gone back to the ones that were glitching, played them for considerable amounts of time, either when it's cold or when it's warm, no issues at all. So I would suggest that it probably doesn't need that piece of copper on both sides. But actually, if you were going to do one of these yourself, you've really got nothing to lose at all and everything to gain by putting a piece on this side before you do your wire things, your wire mods here, and before you do your resistor mods. You'll need to be careful, because if you look at the resistor wires here, they're quite low on the board. So if you put a piece of copper tape under there and ground it, if you're not careful, they're going to be shorting. So you need to maybe insulate it. Maybe stick a piece of insulation tape over the stick some of this down on that side, and then put a piece of insulation tape just there or something, and then stick your components on and stick your wires on. You may even find that after you've just got this piece of shielding, this is no longer required. That wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because this has made a huge difference. It's like night and day. Let's say it was glitching continuously. You could get it to do it every single time before I put that on Super Mario Brothers 2, and as soon as that was on there and grounded, bang, suddenly gone. Problem gone away. What I might do, because it's like in the last video we had 3 thumbs downs there, and you're always going to get haters got to be haters kind of thing, but it wouldn't surprise me if people thought that this was just not required, because that's one of the interesting things I get. I get people commenting on my videos saying, oh, this is over-engineered, why are you doing that, why are you doing this, why are you adding a fan, why just people that think there's not actually a problem, and they're entitled to think that. Just let them go away with their head in the clouds kind of thing, and just head in the sand or whatever. Just let them think that they think there is no problem. If you've got one of these Famicoms and you've got one of these adapters and you've got an Everdrive N8, chances are you've probably come across this. Not everybody has. It's not, because that's the thing really. I have read that there are instances out there where people have been using one of these adapters and not had a single issue at all, which I find hard to believe. Just like people might find this hard to believe, I find it hard to believe that they don't have any issues. But then again, it's all about, it's like, say, it's manufacturing differences, tolerances. It could even depend on the revision of the PPU and CPU, the revision of the boards you've got. There's all sorts of factors, So, yeah, what point I was trying to make is, what I might do is just to, dispel the myths and all the rest of it, is I'm thinking of ordering a second one of these, and I'll show you the difference. We'll do some tests, perhaps in a later video, just with a standard adapter with no modifications, and I'll show you all the crashes and the glitches and the lockups, and then we'll stick this in, and I'll show you it's like night and day. This works reliably. But again, like I say, it works reliably for me with this Famicom and this N8. So there's going to be instances out there, let's say, where you haven't got a problem when you're using that combination of things. But I have, just from the research I've done, I've found quite a few articles online of people asking, how can I fix these problems? I've got problems with Castlevania, Super Mario Brothers 2, Bubble Bobbles freezing, blah blah blah, when using one of these adapters. Anyway, I thought you'd find that interesting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.